The Prime Minister and the Secretary General will now take questions from the press. Nino Arguliani, Imedi TV.
მოგესალმებით, ჩემი პირველი კითხვა იქნება ნატოს გენერალურ მდივანთან. ნატოს ბუქარესტის სამიტზე ითქვა, რომ საქართველო გახდება ნატოს წევრი.
On the Bucharest summit, it was announced that Georgia will become NATO member in Bucharest. Also, we are an aspiring country, which was estimated by NATO as a reliable partner. When do you see some reasonable time frame when Georgia can receive invitation to become NATO member? This goes to the Secretary General. And also the question to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, you oftentimes spoke that Georgia stays devoted and committed to Euro-Atlantic course of development. So what were the messages which Georgia received from the NATO Secretary General in this regard? Thank you.
We decided in Warsaw, at the NATO summit in Warsaw, to reaffirm the decision we made in Bucharest that Georgia will become a member of NATO. But to become a member of NATO, Georgia has to meet the standards, the requirements for membership. And that's exactly why we are working together with Georgia on implementing reforms that enables Georgia to move closer. I will not give you any exact timetables because this is based on merits, it's based on the results, and it's based on the progress Georgia is making. But we have seen a lot of progress, we have seen a lot of reforms, both when it comes to institutional reforms, electoral reforms, freedom of press, but also, of course, defense and security reforms. This is important for the efforts of Georgia moving towards NATO membership, but it's also important in itself. It is important for Georgia because it makes Georgia a safer, a stronger country, and it makes Georgia a stronger democracy, and it also creates the best possible framework for prosperity and economic growth. So I think it is important to remember that the reforms are important because they take Georgia towards NATO, but they are also important because they are of high value for Georgia regardless of NATO. You are making progress. We are supporting you. We adopted the substantial package. We have increased and enhanced the substantial package. We are delivering. We have advisors in Georgia. We have inaugurated a training center. We have opened a new school for defense institution building. And we are showing again and again our political support for Georgia, for instance, with the presence of the North Atlantic Council in Georgia today. I'm not able to give you any exact timetables, but I can once again recognize the progress you are making, and I very much appreciate the close partnership between Georgia and NATO.
Distinguished Secretary General, allow me to field the question, meaning what sort of messages we received from NATO, and allow me to single out the fact that after Warsaw Summit, this, for NATO and North Atlantic Council, is the first international summit that, and the fact that it is being held in Georgia, it has a huge importance in terms of the message of furthering and supporting Georgia. All the members announced the staunch support to the Georgian territorial integrity and sovereignty, and it was very deeply emphasized the importance of the Georgian populace sovereign will to be the member of the Euro-Atlantic family, which is irreversible. And every ally announced their support to Georgia in terms of attaining this important aim. We have also conversed on the different aspects of enforcement of the requirements and delivering on the substantial package, and the strengthening of defense capability will be the centerpiece, and we will be emphasizing in this direction. You must be very well aware that back in the past we shift the accents on preparation of Georgian servicemen to participate in the international mission. And currently, our interoperability with NATO military forces has attained quite higher threshold. We will be right now shifting the emphasis to the strengthening of Georgian defense capabilities, and additional components we are going to insert in this field will be aimed at the direction of strengthening Georgia's defense capabilities. Allow me to one more time salute the statement by the Secretary General that the military reform, democratization of the country, economic development, rapprochement with NATO standards, this first and foremost serves the interest of the Georgian population. It is done for ameliorating living conditions in Georgia, to have more security and better conditions for the general development of the country. It's also very important that the many countries attending summits are providing assistance to Georgia in bilateral formats, and we also discuss these bilateral packages of assistance, which is of significance for us. And also, it is important of Georgia's involvement in the Black Sea security dialogue, which also brings closer with the NATO family and which yields additional opportunities to Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Reuters News Agency. Mr. Stoltenberg, my question is very quick, very precise, very short. What role do you think Russia plays in political decision-making over Georgia's membership in NATO? Because we know that Russia is opposing NATO's enlargement, and especially to the East and ex-Soviet countries. And I would appreciate if our Prime Minister also would add a couple of words about that, whether the Georgian government feels that Russia's political factor plays role in this process, in NATO, in Georgia's future membership in NATO. Thank you very much.
For NATO, it is a fundamental principle that every nation has the right to decide its own path, including what kind of security arrangements or military alliance it wants to be part of. And this is not only a principle that NATO has subscribed to, but it's actually a principle that also Russia and all other European nations have subscribed to many, many times, starting with the Helsinki Final Act back in the 1970s, and then repeatedly done so in different international treaties. So for every sovereign nation, for every independent nation, as Georgia, it is a fundamental right to choose whether it wants to be a member of an alliance or whether it don't want to be a member of an alliance. That's the independent decision of an independent nation. So whether Georgia is going to become a member of NATO or not is up to NATO, the 28 allies, and Georgia to decide. Nobody else has the right to interfere or try to veto or try to intervene in that process. This has been underlined by NATO again and again. And NATO's door remains open. That has been shown many, many times. Despite protests, despite expressions from Russia that they dislike the enlargement of NATO, NATO has continued to enlarge. And we are now in the process of moving from 28 to 29 members because Montenegro is in the process of becoming the 29th member of NATO, showing that the door is open. NATO's door to enlargement is still open, and it's still functioning. So this, of course, also applies for Georgia, and that's the reason why we made the decision we made in Bucharest. I was there myself, and that's the reason why we have also reaffirmed that decision as late as at our summit in Warsaw in July.
Thank you. I think speaking about Russia's influence upon Georgia's potential accession to NATO would not be correct. I think what we need to do is we need to do our own homework in order to approximate, harmonize Georgia's military standards to the NATO standards. And I think we need to wait patiently and move consistently towards NATO accession. And of course, what we are doing right now, reforming Georgia's military, reforming Georgia's democratic institutions is exactly what we need for NATO membership. The fact that Montenegro was attending this very important summit speaks about open door policy of NATO, and this is a big encouragement for all of us in order to consistently continue what we are doing. We believe that there will be a window of opportunity for Georgia, but we need to be patient and we need to be consistent.
Nanuka Iordanishvili, Maestro TV.
Greetings. As you might be aware, on Warsaw Summit, there was a decision made that the alliance will get more active in the strengthening of the Black Sea security system. What will be the role of Georgia? This goes to the Secretary General. And the question to the Prime Minister. In a month's time, we will have the parliamentary elections, and our allies evaluate this forthcoming election as the test of democracy. What anticipations do you have? So how do you vision that?
The Black Sea region and the Black Sea itself is of great importance for Euro-Atlantic security, and we have seen increased Russian presence in the Black Sea region, and we have also seen a substantial military buildup in Crimea by Russia. NATO has decided to increase our presence in the Black Sea. We have already increased our presence in the Black Sea region, but we will further step up our presence in the region and also in the Black Sea itself. We made decisions, as you referred to, at the Warsaw Summit to enhance our presence in the Black Sea region. We are working on that with our military planners now to decide exactly how that is going to take place. And we also continue to support regional efforts by the Black Sea littoral states to ensure security and stability in the region. And for NATO and NATO allies, it is important to have close dialogue, close contact with partner countries like Ukraine and Georgia, being non-NATO members, but NATO partners, and to talk with them, to have dialogue with them regarding our increased presence in the Black Sea.
The 8 October elections, they have a lot of significance. We are trying to retain the high standards which we demonstrated during the presidential and local governance election. Although proceeding from the fact that Georgia is a parliamentary republic, the essence of these elections are higher, the stakes are higher subsequently, and we fully apprehend the responsibility which is put on the government and the ruling party. It goes without saying in terms of the democratic nature of the elections and the transparency. We have input a lot of efforts to have these elections one of the best in the contemporary history of Georgia. We have invited international observers, and their number is unprecedentedly high, to observe the run-up to the elections. It is also worth mentioning that 4 months prior to the elections, the decree, presidential decree on the holding of the election was published, and it was sort of countersigned by the government. So, meaning that the standard in terms of the pre-election standards in Georgia also improved. We have enforced these legislative changes to further strengthen the requirement of the criminal penal code in terms of altercations, in terms of violence, so to curb violence. And entertaining all this, that we are the incumbent government quite well understand that our responsibility is the highest in the course of the forthcoming elections. And it's quite eloquent and attests to this that we have unprecedentedly free media space, which was not the case at all. in the course of the previous elections, all like the high reputation organizations, so I confirm that. And we have all the precursors to have the best elections. What are my forecasts? My forecast is, my anticipation is that we, the ruling party, will win. Bearing in mind that our political force provided and attained the breakthrough in the Georgian political life, introduced the higher political standards without the pressure on media, pressure on businesses. The index of freedom is way higher, like actually double, and that have been acknowledged by many international organizations. And that's why we reckon that people will evaluate this and will make adequate decision, and we are waiting for quite strong landslide support.
By Prime Minister of Georgia, Giorgi Kvirikashvili, and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg is now over. Thank you.
Thank you so much.